Okay, so we are going to turn our attention now to the United States women's national team. If you thought your patriotism peaked when Snoop Dogg ran the 200 meters in a pair of star-spangled pants, you have no idea what's coming up next. I am so excited to introduce our first guest, a trailblazer, a legend, and let's keep it real, a footballing icon. She has taken charge of this team after an insanely successful stint at Chelsea, in which she won 7 Women's Super League titles, 5 FA Cups, and 2 League Cups. If you're wondering, that's a very good record. It is my great pleasure to introduce 2021's FIFA Coach of the Year, the manager who will lead the women's national team onto the field in France. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the one and only Emma Hayes. Come on out. Wow, Emma, it is incredible to be here with you.
Hi.
Now that you're with us in the United States, settling into your new role, you're wearing our crest with those 4 stars on it, maybe not on that one. You're buying expensive bottles of water in our airports. I have to ask, what is it like for you to be back in the US?
Well, especially coming into New York today. I lived here for 7 years, so this is my town. I love this place.
Well, I know this is where your coaching journey began, but can you give us a little insight into what you've been up to today?
I mean, technically speaking, up this morning, did staff meetings in and around the agenda for this evening's meetings with the players. So there's something we've been working on called letting go, keeping hold of, and start new. So in our last camp, we did reflections as staff and players around what do we need to let go of from the past, what do we absolutely need to keep hold of, and what do we need to start doing. So I'm going to whittle that down in an opening meeting tonight with the players, and then came into Nike Town to do some press, and then do what every woman does, do a bit of shopping for an hour. So I've had a fab time.
Did you get anything good?
Oh, I'm so happy.
Well, so this is where your coaching journey began back in 2002. Mm-hmm. For retrospect, this is when Kelly Clarkson was just first gracing us with her presence on the first season of American Idol. So you flew from England to the US on a one-way ticket with just a backpack full of clothes. Mm-hmm. You coached around New York City and Long Island and at Iona College. From your perspective, Emma, how has the sport changed in the US since you were last here?
That's a good question, because I guess I can only look at it from the pro level now. I think when it comes to the youth level, I probably need a little more time to see where that's changed, though I know it's become an even bigger business. I think when it comes to the senior level, the fact that we have an established league. You know, I was a part of WPS, or I came to this country when WUSA folded, WPS folded, so for us to have a sustainable professional league where, for me, the development of players that not necessarily the national team makes, but the league make. If I think of players, even like Croy Bethune or Hal Hirschfeld, these are late developers that might not come through the system. I hope that the stability of the league and the USL League, as it comes, there'll be an emergence of a bigger player pool.
Yeah, for sure. And how have you changed in the 20 or so years since then?
I mean, listen, all my friends are still the same friends I've had my whole life, bar a couple, probably because I don't have time to do that. I think in terms of how have I changed, I have an executive coach that works with me even when I'm with the team, and I was talking to her on the bus on the way into New York, and I said, I remember the days when I used to move up and down Greenwich Avenue, and I was desperate to go to a place called the New School to study international politics, and I had envisaged a career for myself being a hostile negotiator somewhere hostile, and working for the United Nations up the road. I never envisaged I would be, and I told her this, that I never envisaged I'd be sat on the stage at Webster Hall. In fact, I came to see Paul Weller here once. Yeah, it was great, because no one really knew who he was, but as an English person, it was bloody brilliant. But no, I have changed in terms of I didn't really see myself in football. But once I got into football, I didn't see myself doing anything else. But I think I'm exactly the same person I was then.
That is so interesting. Well, football is very lucky to have you. You once said that you were, and I'm quoting, born in England but made in America, kind of just like One Direction. What did you take from your first experience here that you've carried with you throughout your career?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think I've ever had a haircut as cool as those fellas on the right. But they're all polished. I actually have done some work with Liam Payne before. I've actually coached Liam Payne.
No way.
Yeah,
oh,
honestly.
My sister-in-law would flip out about that.
Twice. I didn't, I'm glad he's a musician and not a footballer. But very
Roasted.
nice guy. Yeah, that's a long time ago. A long time ago.
Yeah. What have you carried with you from your first experience coaching in America till now?
Good question. I think if I think about my early starts and working in so much youth football here, I think about how much I prioritise individual development. That'd probably be one thing. And individualising, like no one's the same, even within a team. I'm massive on those things. Secondly, I think when I was at Iona, and I was interviewed about this earlier, I learnt about recruitment. I had a really little budget and had so many schools to compete with. So I actually a friend of mine used to coach at NYU, and she had a massive budget. So I always made sure I travelled with her on the recruitment trips. Stayed in the nice hotels, I might add. In fact, I once drank her contact lenses, but that's a whole nother story. We couldn't drive back because she couldn't see. But anyway, I think I learned to recruit the right characters and things like that. I think I've retained that. And I think when it comes to the love of at least the tactical side of the game, I think I've always had that from my time in Europe. So I've probably added that.
Yeah. Well, at the end of your season with Chelsea earlier this year, you won the Women's Super League for the 5th straight time. I know. But you had said in the media that you kind of couldn't carry on the way you were going. You didn't have that much left to give. Coaching at this elite of a level must just be really exhausting and draining. So I want to know how you've regrouped since then and now mentally and regained your focus before starting this role with the national team.
Well, I think I always spin this back to people who have worked in the same job for 12 years, right? There was only so many times I could go to Liverpool away. I'd done that trip so many times. So the familiarity piece, I think, naturally creates a little bit of comfort. And I'm someone who drives the opposite effect. I believe in positive discomfort. So I think internally the drive had changed for me. I could feel it. And I'm someone who always reflects about how to get to the next space. And I found myself not wanting to do that. But I don't think it's just because of the job. My dad died. And that, I think, absolutely, I think not seeing him on the touchline and going through that year grieving, and he wasn't in his seat, I found it almost impossible. I found I almost couldn't look towards the stand anymore. And I think that just knowing that he gave me his blessing just before he passed, that, he said, look, if US comes up, girl, are you going to take it? And I was like, yes, Dad, for sure. And he gave me his blessing, someone who has been an advocate of the USA and the 99ers. He was the person who brought me a calendar home, actually, back in the time, saying, listen, this is an amazing team here, and I've been to watch them play in finals. So getting his blessing, I think, really helped. But I'm also the sort of person, I'd committed to that, and I wanted to carry the job out. I didn't want to leave my family, Chelsea, in the lurch. I wanted to finish that job, create the right transition, and I've left knowing that I've done everything I can and hopefully left the shirt in a better place.
Yeah. Well, you've been involved with the sport at so many different levels, from youth teams, semi-pro clubs, all the way to the peak of the women's game with Chelsea. But this is the first time you've been in charge of a national team. So in your experience so far these past couple of months, what are some of the most significant differences between coaching club and coaching a national team?
Well, you have to organise yourself differently, but coaching players are coaching players. I'll often have a 4-day build for a game, and people say to me, oh, you've got 7 games in 18 days. I'm like, yeah, I know, I do that every 6 weeks. So for me, the volume of games, I think, have prepared me better for this level, because I've had so many exposures, whether it's coaching, leading the classroom, analysing. I've done it so many times. What it's taught me to do is to take all of that, and the challenge I enjoy the most is how can I make it as succinct as possible and then deliver it with a little amount of time. Like, I love it when people say, oh, it's going to be a challenge, you don't get much time to coach. I'm like, that for me is the challenge, is can I do that? Can we do it in such a way so that the team can go out and perform with such limited time?
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So I think, having played for the national team myself, I understand there is internally this kind of heightened expectation and standards set by the team for the team, but there is also really high expectations that come externally from the outside. I see it as a pressure to perform and to be the best. How do you look at that? Is there any expectation on you that you feel that comes with taking over this job?
I'm always somebody who just puts it into perspective, right? I'm not suggesting anybody's in this room that will be struggling with paying their mortgage, but that might be the case. Or people who are having challenges with their health or in life. Like, that for me is pressure. Like, that real life stuff. This is an opportunity that very few get. So it's a privilege, and one that, I don't mean privilege in the sort of Eton school type of privilege. I mean in a way that you get to travel a lot, you get to be with some amazing people, have an amazing experience, and what I've realised is that the legacy, people like yourself and everybody has put that shirt in such a space that when you get hold of it, all you want to do is make it even better. So where's the pressure in that? It's something that everybody feels and understands. It doesn't actually even have to be spoken about. And I think, look, everybody expects us to win. Everybody wants to win. Of course, that's what we want to do. But I'm very methodical about things, and just, methodical, be pragmatic about it, build it the right way. And we got to build to get to a place, but one day at a time.
Last November, you flew to Florida to meet with some of the U.S. players. You revealed a new slogan for the U.S. women, which was new identity, new history, new heights. What do you see as this team's identity right now heading into the Olympics, and what do you think that identity needs to be to have the success that you're looking for?
Well, I think that's something we've been shaping internally. I think when it comes to creating new history, I want to be in a position with this team where we're talking about this team. And that's not to negate anything that's done previously, but we have to forge our own path. We have to forge an identity that works for this generation of players in the context in which the game is played. This isn't 10 years ago. We're playing incredible teams that have tactically, technically, physically evolved, where there's parity. So there's no point talking about the past in isolation. And I think the new heights piece is, who wants to fucking do the same thing again, over and over again? Like, let's start creating our own narrative.
I think one of the reasons that you have had such success at this level is because of the relationships that you build with your players. How did you start to do that when you were still in London coaching Chelsea, but you had been named as the coach of this team? And now that you're here with a shorter runway to the Olympics, can you accelerate that process now that you're here in person and build on those relationships with players?
Well, look, I don't have 30 seconds to waste at any point. That's my philosophy, so I don't want to waste it. When I get the time, 15 minutes, I want to know what matters to them, what is important to them, how I can get the best out of them. It's important for them to tell me that. But since then, we've been doing something called 360 meetings with them, because I believe in making everything holistically right around them, so that rather than and I know you're going to say, yeah, that used to piss me off as well. You know, when you're in situations, they say, oh, you're not in this training session. And players would be like, but why not? They always want to know the why of things. In order to, I think, be able to lead people to where you want to go, everybody needs to understand why you do the things you do, whether that's make a sub, whether that's pick a lineup, whether that's take a person out of a training session for them to deload them, for example. So we've been doing 360 meetings, but also I'm massive on like mirroring. It's not about the players, and the staff need to mirror exactly the same things and go through the same processes so that there is alignment. Alignment creates clarity, and I think when things are clear, they're concise, you're consistent, I think that then you can get the best out of people. When that doesn't happen, that's when things go a little bit haywire within teams. But I also think everyone's an individual in a team, and I really genuinely believe that at the highest level, you have to recognise that, I don't know, you might need to watch this about the opponent and that person doesn't. Or you might need to do those extras because that gets you in the right frame, but that one doesn't, etc. And knowing all of those things allows the staff to deliver better.
Yeah, so are you kind of saying for each individual player to build that relationship, you think that transparency, you want a player to understand why they didn't start, and you would be able to give them that answer?
Yeah, and sometimes, I've said this a lot, I noticed this from coaching in America that I think is so different from Europe, is often players will say, what do I need to do, coach, to get in the team?
I was going to say that. I was going to say, what can I work on? Yeah.
That's a really American thing.
Yeah.
My problem with that question is when a coach then says, I don't know, I want you to take more shots outside of the box, for example. You then take those shots out of the box and you still don't get in the team. You say, but you told me that you wanted me to work on that. No, you're right. My response to that when players are even asking me that now is keep doing what you're doing, keep working at all elements of your game. My decisions to pick you is not necessarily based on something you do or do not do. It might be a strategy, it might be the playing style, it might be all of those things as opposed to just numbers, goals, assists. You know, there's a whole lot that goes into putting a team together, more than just numbers and just people feeling just fulfilling individual requirements. It's complex.
Yeah. Other international tournaments like the World Cup have 23-player rosters, but you had to cut that down even further to an 18-player roster for the Olympics. What are some of those most essential things that you're looking for in assessing when you have only 18 spots and 16 outfield spots to fill? And are there any benefits to working within those limits? Kind of like how on Chopped you only get 4 ingredients and you have to make this meal, but it's almost like, well, this is my only choice. I have to work within this. Does that make sense?
Well, I think go back to what I said to you before about getting things right around the player. Our job is to keep the players on the pitch fit and healthy. That's our job. Some of that we can control, right? So loading, minimizing muscle injuries, that sort of stuff. We can have an impact on that. So our job as staff is keep everyone on the pitch, first and foremost. For the players that are on the pitch, you have to have a combination of things. So you need to be able to fulfill the tactical requirements in and out of possession. You need to be able to fulfill the tactical requirements if we need to change. And are we adaptable to be able to do that? And then which ones can do it again and again and again? Which ones can make the impact from the bench? Which ones can play a role that may not start all of the time, but they can have an impact in very... You have to factor in some... And then the chemistry of all of that goes through it. And look, there's no denying there's tough decisions and there's plenty of players that are good enough to be on the roster. But factoring all of those things in, and not single decisions I make, multiple people involved with that decision-making process that are analysing games, analysing the team. And of course, none of it is ever completely right, but I think it's about getting balance.
Was versatility and tactical flexibility a big component in choosing this roster?
Look, I think the game you have to be tactically flexible to play at the highest level now, whether you press in a man for man, whether you sit in a mid-block in a 4-4-2, whether you build out in a 3-4-3, whether you do it with a low fullback, high fullback, whether you do it with a split midfield, whether you do it side by side. Flexibility is what happens in a game. So for me, starting point is I look at the opponent, look at our playing style, our principles, then what tweaks would I then make to exploit that opponent? I'm only interested in us, in how to get us to do that, but also have to recognise state of the game might change, might need a goal, there's 10 minutes left. Is it a case of, go double width, stay single width? Is it our rest defence change from a 2 and a 3 or a 3 and a 2? Is it that we have to go split in the 2-8 so I can get somebody else in the box? Do that 8 have to be someone who's good aerially because we don't have it good in the 9? It's all those factors. It's not straightforward.
That's a lot.
Hopefully it won't all make the podcast.
Well, you've never backed away from making tough decisions if you thought it was in the best interest of the team. You once said, I choose winning over everything else. I actually had a short coaching stint recently myself. It was only 4 days, and I honestly kind of realized, thank you, how many factors go into those decisions. I learned everybody's name the first day, and then the next day I was like, well, what position do they play? There's so many factors that go into it. After joining Chelsea, you released your team captain, and then going into the Olympics this time, you made what must have been a difficult choice not to call up 35-year-old Alex Morgan, who won't be part of a major tournaments roster for the first time since 2008. How do you handle these types of decisions, balancing the needs of the squad or even the future of the squad against the human beings that you know are on the other side?
Well, again, another difficult question because putting a squad together, you're always going to disappoint someone. And I have been brought in to look at it with fresh eyes on what is needed going forward. Of course, having a balance between experience and less experience is one that I knew I'd be faced with. And as I've mentioned publicly before, the cap accumulation down our roster is too low. We need to start giving exposures and experiences to players that might have been in and around it, might have been on the bench at World Cups, etc. But it's an opportunity for that. But I don't base things like on one single reason. Of course, it helps when players can be a little more versatile. It helps, but it's not the sole decision. And I think when it comes to Alex, first of all, there's no easy way to give someone crap news. And sometimes coaches can get themselves into a bigger twist with that, with maybe overdoing it. And I personally, short and sweet, one, out of respect, but also because I've maybe learned over the years there's not nice ways to say things. Sometimes just be blunt, be direct about it. And the human piece for me is in around the delivery of that, but also accepting that no matter the situation, there's always going to be somebody who doesn't like the decision. And I'm someone who's got the experience of, I don't know, I call it putting the blinders on. Like, you put yourself in my shoes, it's not an easy job, it's not easy decisions. Someone's got to make them. I make them, and I've learned over the years to not have too many influences in the wrong direction, and hopefully, do the best by the players when I'm asked.
Yeah, it's really centering the team at all times and what's best for the team. And I think that is what enables decisions to become more clear. Is this best for the team?
And I've been working in the background on making sure it's really clear what our identity is on the pitch. This is our playing style. These are our playing principles: attacking, defending, transition, restarts. These are the attributes from an individual perspective you need to fulfill those team requirements. Now the benchmark is measure subjectively how everybody fits within the way that we're looking for the team to play. And I'm someone, I want to control the game. I want us to go to the top level and be in a position to control, to progress, and for me with purpose, but doing it with players that will have the ability to be able to transcend them ideas. And let me tell you, this group is amazing at comprehending complex ideas and making it look very simple, very cerebral group, very thoughtful, intelligent group that I'm looking forward to putting this group, in a place where they can perform at their best with that very clear idea around them.
It's very exciting to hear this. So the Olympics are coming up. The U.S. starts its Olympics journey in Group B. We're going to play Zambia first, who are led by the Orlando Pride's Barbara Banda, tied at the top of the NWSL's Golden Boot race with 12 goals in 12 games, and Bay City FC's Rachel Kundananji. Second match is against former Olympic gold medalists, Germany, who were knocked out during group play at the last World Cup. But they only have 2 defeats in the 12 games they've played since. They boast real stalwarts like Alex Popp and Lena Oberdorf. And then the final group stage match will be against World Cup semifinalists Australia, who the U.S. beat 4-3 in the bronze medal game at the last Summer Olympics. An experienced side, but who are sadly without captain and star forward Sam Kerr, who tore her ACL in January. So Emma, with so few teams at the Olympics, it's just 12 teams, kind of every group is a group of death. And every single opponent is really high quality. You have to be a high quality team to be in this tournament. It's so small. Does that make it more challenging or more unpredictable maybe than a World Cup?
Yes, I would say so. Harder because of those fewer teams. I mean, let's take Zambia. On form, probably have the best striker in the world right now. Banging the goals in. I say on form because I never want Sammy Kerr to phone me up later and remind me, which she will, I might add, no matter the hour. I think you have differences in style. With Zambia, you have a team that will play less progressive passes, i.e. control the game in a certain way. But if you play man for man all over the pitch against them, it's going to be a difficult game. Their ability to transition is better than any team I've seen in world football. We've been watching them, unbelievable at their ability to go from back to front. So for us, structure becomes essential. That becomes the bedrock, what we do in possession and how we're thinking about what happens when there is a turnover, to be able to get those things right, and then get all the individual detail, which of course I'm not going to disclose around those individual players. And I think with Germany, team I know quite well, more traditional 4-4-2 team, but really dynamic, unbelievable wingers. I think in world football probably produce more crosses into the box other than Spain than any other team. So their threat is out wide. And I think with Australia, a lot of rotations, a lot of variety to Tony's play. And there's been a tactical evolution from them, whether it's inverting fullback, stuff like that. So you have to adapt between each of them. That's the part of the job I love the most. Being like, I like all the fun tactical stuff where I don't like games that are too easy. So to your point, is harder better? Yes, because I think it engages you. If you're a top performer, the harder it is, the more I want to do it.
Emma, your energy is firing me up. I wish I could play so bad. And you're known for inspiring your players in really unique ways. You've read poetry, you've compared them to geese flying in formation. That reminds me of the Mighty Ducks, kind of. And you've even played videos of winning UFC fighters to psych everybody up before big matches. I have to tell you, this is very my style. I used to watch Rocky highlights before big games. So if you need any additional content for this team, check out the training montage and fight scene from Rocky IV.
All right.
It's really good. So what are you doing, or what have you done to help build up this team's mentality before this tournament? Are there any YouTube clips or quotes you're planning on using?
Yes.
Besides Rocky?
Yes is the answer to that, but I'm not going to reveal it here because as I maintain that as a surprise for the players first. I think it's a combination of things, like to build belief, like to develop the resilience, especially when it's going wrong, and make sure the players have got the skill set to be able to manage that. Find different ways so that they can perform under the big pressure moments, and most importantly, get them to understand what it looks like for them. It doesn't I like the players to be in interactive sessions in the classroom where they're constantly thinking about what they have to do to be able to get themselves in the best place possible and what becomes their North Stars when it goes a little wobbly. They're the things I enjoy doing. We have an incredible communications team and videographers that I've got to be honest, they're amazing, and I love working with them because they allow me to be my creative self and work on developing creative videos in preparation. We've got a really cool surprise for the team this week on Friday, which I'm so psyched about. I can't say any more than that, but you'll see it come out. But I'm creating an interaction for the team, which I'm really, really looking forward to. So yeah, like a number of different things. But I have an executive coach. This is the other thing. Like, this is important that I'm coached too on how to get the best out of people, and somebody's watching me on my constant behaviours and body language and interactions. Why? Because if I want you to role model me, then I have to make sure that I'm at the front of my head to be at the top of my game, and I'm loving it. Like, I feel completely energised. I'm absolutely loving it.
This is the last question for you, Emma. I know, and you mentioned this a little bit earlier, you and your dad, Sid, were at Wembley Stadium in London for the Olympic final in 2012 to watch the US team win gold. If you could go back and talk to yourself on that day, what do you think you would tell yourself about everything that was to come? What do you think you needed to hear?
Well, what I should have said is that was when I took 2 years out of the game. I needed a break. So I was sitting there as a fan. I wasn't involved in football and coaching. That job, I got a phone call, I think a week later, to offer me the Chelsea job. So I was like, I want to get out of football. I want to go back to, hostile contracting and doing stuff in Sierra Leone or wherever that might be. But if I could go back, I'd probably say, thanks, Dad, for being that person that you have to realise I lived in a Victorian society where, women really, in football didn't exist, and there certainly wasn't any role models, let alone opportunity, let alone a professional game. People always ask me this question, would you have been a professional if you weren't injured? I'm like, well, it didn't exist, so how could I aspire to something I couldn't see? And I just owe so much to the biggest feminist in my life, my father, who was busy counting players in the Olympics that I'd coached, and he said, you never know, one day. And I was like, no, Dad, I'm not interested in international football. It's a part-time job compared to club coaching, which it is not. I got that wrong. But just thanks, Dad, because without my person, I definitely wouldn't be sat here.
Emma, thanks. Yeah. This has been such a joy to get to speak to you as you enter your first major international tournament as a manager. So we all want to wish you the best of luck in France.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we get a big round of applause for Emma Hayes?
Thanks. Thank you.